Okay, hello, I'm Joe Piggin. I'm a senior lecturer in sport policy and management, and I'm going to be giving a short presentation today about an increasingly serious issue which is affecting the sport management community. And it's specifically regarding how we as sport management academics engage with corporations who are now being increasingly seen as selling food and drink and products which are not as healthy as they could be. Okay, so my context for this presentation is that increasingly governments around the world, whether they're Western governments or developing or emerging economies, are increasingly focusing on sport participation, physical activity participation, as ways of getting their populations active and healthy. Now, at the same time, there's increasing attention to healthy eating and healthy nutrition. Now, these movements are occurring despite the fact that in the sports domain, many sports organizations, many events, many athletes are endorsed and sponsored by companies who, on balance, you would say, sell unhealthy food and drink. So my research question for this presentation is, what are the implications for the increasing health lobby for sport management academics? And by academics I mean researchers, teachers, and students as well. What are the implications of this increasing health lobby for us as a community? So the presentation will involve or synthesize and bring together a few different components. I'm going to review some of the relevant and recent corporate social responsibility literature. I'm going to also review and reflect on some current marketing material that sport organizations put out. I'm going to have a brief reflection on social and policy events which are leading to a turbulent terrain. And I'm also going to bring my own critical reflection, which is informed by political economy, or an approach which really questions or interrogates some of the power structures, some of the current policies involved in sport. And here is one example of a sponsorship agreement between a food company, McDonald's, and a sports organization, the Football Association. Now, the Football Association encourage local clubs to have and form sponsorship agreements. They say sponsors are the perfect partner and can give your club the upper hand. And here is one manifestation of a part of that sponsorship agreement. McDonald's gives money to the Football Association, and as long as local clubs meet various criteria for being good, safe clubs, then they will receive free kit from the Football Association with McDonald's branded all over it, as you can see. So here is an example from the United States. While not sponsorship exactly, it is an example of a company using youth sport, children's sport to promote its product, suggesting that chocolate milk can help with all sorts of concussion-related symptoms. Here is an example of a chocolate bar company in the UK, Cadbury, promoting its products through sponsoring the 2012 Olympic Games, suggesting to young people that they could play their way to London 2012, and if the young people would participate, they would receive all sorts of chocolate bars as a reward, with the chance to win tickets as well to the Olympic Games. So, of course, there are issues with this. These issues are best summed up by Van der Vijveri and Swinburne in 2015 when they wrote that the marketing of unhealthy food products to children is powerful because it influences children's food preferences, purchase requests, and consumption. They go on to say that marketing of unhealthy food is pervasive because modern integrated marketing ensures that brands engage with children across multiple media platforms. They also say it's predatory because it exploits the credulity of children for commercial gain. And so you can appreciate the focus here is on children, but certainly we could expand this out to older adults as well. And so the question becomes, how should sport management academics and researchers react to these sorts of allegations about corporations targeting young children? How should we think and talk about corporations? Given the significant health problems related to nutrition and health, what should we do? Okay, so I'm going to try and refine the discussion by focusing for a few moments just on sugar consumption, the increasing debate about how much sugar people should be consuming every day. Now, this really is demonstrated by a couple of billboards which appeared in London, England, just last Christmas. Here is one on the side of a bus stop from the Coca-Cola company, suggesting that you can bring happiness home with you in the form of a Coke bottle. Now, incredibly, on the other side of this billboard was another billboard, and here it is here. You can see it's from the local council, the Brent local council, and it says that encouraging people to ditch the sugary drinks. And so clearly there is a significant conflict here, not just on the bus stop, but also in terms of how we are encouraged to live happy, healthy lives. There certainly is a growing movement towards cutting down on sugar. And so there is a variety of emerging health policy about these issues, particularly with sugar. We have recommendations emerging, this one from the World Health Organization, suggesting that we should reduce our intake of free sugars to less than 10% of our total energy intake. There are bans emerging. Here is one from New Zealand. All public hospitals are going to be removing sugary drinks. We have taxes, and this is a very contentious issue, but certainly NHS England is going to impose a 20% sugar tax in hospital cafes. And we also have warnings. And here is an example from the Alberta Health Services about how adults and children should be educated about sugar. And here it is. Here is the front page of this document, the Sugar Shocker Education Kit from the Alberta Health Services. And you can get a sense that it really is problematizing, almost demonizing the consumption of sugar. And so if these various organizations around the world are taking quite drastic steps regarding sugar consumption, what does this mean then for sport organizations who are often sponsored by companies which sell products high in sugar? What does it mean for athletes who are often sponsored by these companies as well? What is their ethical duty or obligation in this regard? Now, companies around the world have different sorts of tactics. Here is an article from the Times in England suggesting how Coca-Cola has ingratiated itself with athletes, with celebrities, with researchers to try and sell more of their product. Perhaps the best way of summing this up is to quote Rapin Jesperson, who wrote about entangled marketing. And they essentially said that we are in a new era, and that for companies to achieve long-term relationships with customers, they need to go far beyond engagement. They say that they need to entangle themselves with customers. And the idea is that once entangled, a pair of particles, in this case the customer and the company or the brand, remain inextricably connected. They never let go of one another, no matter the distance apart. So you can appreciate why companies would want to focus their branding, focus their product and marketing on areas of particularly youth sport. So this raises some issues for us as sports management academics. How are we going to increase the general welfare of society when there are clearly some significant tensions in sports management and sports marketing? On the one hand, we are trying to promote economic growth, customer satisfaction, service quality, and yet on the other hand, we are certainly implicated in the arena of public health and disease prevention. So here is a quote from the current UK government's sporting strategy, where they talk about the contentious issue of sports sponsorship. They say that it's an area where a number of sports and clubs have adopted a responsible approach, for example, around sponsorship by companies marketing alcohol or high-fat, sugar and salt foods. The government says the government, will continue to discuss with sports the scope for voluntary agreements in this area. And so that highlights that at the moment, certainly in the UK, the government is not concerned with imposing any bans or any conditions regarding the funding that sport organisations receive. Now, so to consider some of the recent academic thoughts on the issue, here's a thought from Karla Henderson in Sport Management Review 2009. And Karla does question the emphasis of academics. She says that the focus over the last 20 years has been primarily concerned with topics related to sports as spectatorship or entertainment, and not sports as opportunities to engage mass participation in active behaviours that can lead to better health. And to that quote, I'm sure we could add the exploitation by companies selling high sugar products. More recently, in the Journal of Sport Management, a quote from Bradish and Cronin, I think, sum up the prevailing or dominant attitude when it comes to corporate social responsibility. Talking about one study, whether or not fans care about CSR efforts, they sum this up by saying the study revealed a general positivity in sports consumers' responses towards organisational CSR activities. Further, their results, the study's results, indicate that CSR activities had a strong and positive impact on the organisation's perceived reputation. And I think this is the important part of the quote. This reinforces the importance of cultivating CSR activities to elevate assessment of reputation in the minds of consumers, and thus a successful source of competitive advantage for the firm. So here's an example of CSR being justified as a source of competitive advantage, highlighting the tension between health promotion and certainly economic growth. So what are the implications for teaching and research? Well, here are some my emerging concerns. Certainly in a teaching domain, we need to be concerned about how we frame corporate sponsors. Are they simply referred to as corporate brands with a lot of consumers, or are we to frame them otherwise, with a caveat that they might be promoting untoward health? Secondly, I ask, should we teach case studies of sponsorship deals by corporations which are increasingly criticised for their poor nutritional status? And again, this relates to these global brands such as Coca-Cola, McDonald's, chocolate companies around the world, who are often well known for sponsoring not only global sports events but also local sports events and teams as well. Thirdly, I ask, should we encourage students to undertake placements at these corporations? Increasingly, students want experience in the corporate world, and often the size of these corporations and the status that they have as cool companies certainly should provoke us to consider our relationship with them as academics. And I have some considerations about implications for research as well. For example, should we as academics be seeking funding from corporations that sell products with a poor nutritional status? This really is a growing concern, and I think it needs to be more overt or more explicit when we consider who we are seeking funding from. Secondly, if we are going to conduct ethical research, my question is, does ethical research involving corporations require that we research not just the benefits but also the costs of corporate involvement? Are there untoward costs in terms of an association between a corporation and a local or a professional sports organisation? And thirdly, I wonder this as a growing concern. I wonder, should conflict of interest statements become normal practice in the social sciences? Certainly they're popular now in many other disciplines, but from what I've seen at various conferences, they don't seem to be very popular or very commonplace amongst sport managers and sport management academics. So that's all from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to talking to you again. Cheers.